Good evening. Welcome to CosmoVision. Hey guys, welcome to our third installment of CosmoVision. Hopefully I will be able to get the editing out on this bad boy quicker than the other ones. We welcome you guys. This is a segment that we are running that really has to do with a lot of things as they are happening in real time, in real life. A lot of times it'll be, a clip that we've seen or a bit of news that is extremely relevant for the gospel, what's happening and what the church is going through, how the church needs to respond, in our opinion. And that opinion obviously is based on what the word says. So welcome, guys. I got my colleague and sister-in-arms here, Shelly, hanging out with me, doing all the things on the computer at the moment.
All right.
Yes.
Good late evening, everybody.
Yes. It's rather late. It's 11 where I'm at, but I'm just going to tough it out. We've got quite a cool episode for you guys today, but real quick, let me give you guys some plugins. You can follow us on most major social media platforms, which is Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. You can follow us on Rumble. You can follow us on YouTube. You can also follow us. If you want to just find all of our stuff, just go to solo.to/the-CTDW. Again, it's solo.to/the-CTDW. It has links to everything we got there. You can also support us on Patreon. Right now, we're doing as little as $5 a month, and it gives you extra content behind the paywall. I'm not going to waste you guys' time. Honestly, I kind of want to jump right into this one. I think Shell and I are kind of at the brim with all these thoughts and kind of the stuff that's going on today.
Well, because
go ahead and take it. Yeah.
On a scale of 1 to 10 on the weird-o-meter, and we excel in the weird-o-meter, this one's probably a 32.
Yeah, it's pretty relevant, man. I guess I'll let you kind of talk about what caught your eye and why we decided to go this route. What it was that caught your attention, Shell?
So we're twits and we tweet.
While you do that, I'll pull up the tweet here.
All right. We try not to get too embroiled in Twitter arguments, because what's the point? You don't win anybody over. But we both follow Timothy Alberino, and 2 days ago, his tweet just kind of like stopped me, and I told Ricky, I want to talk about Tim's tweet.
Yeah.
There it is, and it's chilling. And then the media storm that it has caused, just you'd think that E.T. had taken out his Reese's Pieces and was asking to phone home.
Yeah.
But Tim says, abandon the demon theory of UFOs, as it is insufficient to account for what is being/will be disclosed in the coming days. And
heavy stuff.
He, like, for real. And you're like, oh, is this some bogus thing? Is this some, ChatGPT tomfoolery? And there's a whistleblower for any of you who have been under a rock this week.
Jeez.
What is the whistleblower's name again?
His name is David Charles. Good night. Grusch. Grusch. I don't know how to say it. Yeah.
Grusch. And he's not a wackadoodle. He is a decorated combat officer. He has worked on the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, or the NGA, not to be confused with the basketballers in the NBA. Sorry, guys.
That would be national. That would be Space Jam, is what you're thinking of.
Oh gosh, the aliens. They've been preparing us for aliens for quite some time.
No kidding.
He's a National Reconnaissance Office. Um, he was representative, or he was their representative to the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force from 2019 to 21. In 21, he he's the one who kind of came forward, and then um,
Got ridiculed for it heavily.
oh man, a lot
That's an
of
understatement.
retaliation against
Yeah.
him. Um, but it, the debrief is who he gave his expose to. If you haven't found it, honestly, if you haven't found all of this, you haven't come across it yet, I would say go on Twitter and look up Timothy Alberino,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Alberino. I've Googled him enough times to have learned how to spell his last name correctly.
I'll put it back on the
And
screen real quick.
you you can read this whole article. It's fascinating. I mean, come on, the news outlets have picked it up. They've all got snippets of this,
Mm-hmm.
um, of the story going on. Um, there are any number of influencers talking about this.
Yeah.
One of our favorite, the Blurry Bros, um, talk about it, and they do a good quick summation of definitions like the ones Rick and I have done before of the difference between fallen angel, Nephilim,
Mm-hmm.
demon, hybrid, uh, watchers,
Elohim, Watchers, what we call the Banished, right?
right? They bring into it the ghost a little bit too, just in
Mm-hmm.
defining terms in this tweet thread. Um, and it's very interesting. Um, this is not something that I would have expected. I mean, honestly, most of this world is not something I would have expected in 98, even in 1999 when we were worried about everything crashing at midnight, because
Y2K for you old fogies
Y2K. Yep.
like
Um,
us.
I was an adult. I had a job on computers on a military installation, and
Mm.
like we didn't know, should we pull some money
Mm-hmm.
out so we've got some cash on hand? I was in a
Yeah.
military base in the middle of the Mojave Desert. Um, I was this military spouse there. Not to sound like I was doing anything cool, I really wasn't. I just had a job on post, but you know, we that's what we were worried about, not
Mm-hmm.
that
Any of this
the
stuff.
area 51 wasn't far away from me because we are in Fort Irwin. Area 51 is
Mm.
just a little bit east in Nevada. Yes, I'm a Californian and I don't say Nevada.
Can I tell you just a stupid, interesting fact that I've always thought is
Yes.
hilarious? You know what Nevada means?
No, I have no idea.
It means a snowing.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
well, I guess it suits the state.
Highly, highly, unless it's like, I don't know if it's like some native tongue instead of Spanish, but if it's Spanish,
Maybe. I
it
mean,
means
it does,
snowed.
there are plenty of places where it does snow in Nevada,
Okay, fair
like
enough, I guess.
Reno.
Snow
Um,
dirt.
you know what? But that's what people think of Texas, and it's what people
That's
think of
true.
Arizona too.
That's
And I
true.
mean, there's good skiing 2 mile
Well,
or not 2 miles, 2 hours from my house. In
oh, okay. Well, that's fair.
well,
I just,
Cloudcraft,
whenever I think of
Ruidoso.
Arizona, I just think of the recent years that you guys, well, there, I guess you're not there anymore, but their trash cans were melting. That's
I'll
what kind of
tell
does
you
it for
what,
me.
right? But no, you go up to Payson. Well, Payson, Prescott, and those are like a 2 hour drive from Phoenix, the metro
Yeah.
area. So like really, um, the desert areas are all very mountainous.
Yeah,
So we can do
absolutely.
the math,
Sure.
high desert, winter, frozen precipitation. But
Sorry, I'm sidetracking you.
yeah, you totally did. So Area 51 wasn't far away. And,
Right.
we've been hearing for a long time. I have an uncle who was pretty high up in the Air Force. And, my mom was a retired Army. And she would tell him, she would ask him, tell me, brother, tell me about what went on there. And he would tell her, Kay, your clearance isn't high enough. I can't tell you these things. It'd make my mom
Mm.
so mad. And I'd just be like, whatever. They're so full of it. But now you've got people with serious rank and high credibility coming forward
Mm-hmm.
and saying,
Mm-hmm.
hey, the Nimitz um, incident was real. I was there. This is what,
2017 was it?
2014, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, might even have been older than that. My brother-in-law remembers very clearly the lights over Phoenix. Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That was a big
no,
deal.
he was there, he saw them, totally legit, not a normal thing. You can try to spin it any way you want. You will
Yeah,
never make him believe that that was a normal, natural
of course not.
occurrence or people playing
Es-
outside of Luke Air Force Base.
Especially given
Mm-mm.
the time that I mean, like the epoch in which it happened. This is like
Right,
long before drones were commonplace and stuff like that. I mean,
right.
way
Before we
long
had
before that.
smartphones,
Mm-hmm.
we're
Mm-hmm.
talking that was what in the 19 late
90.
1990s.
Yeah, I mean that was when like video cameras were still video cameras. Like they
Right.
were actual cassette tapes
Yeah,
still.
your mini cassette.
So, yep.
But I just would not have thought that this would be a credible tweet and credible news stories. And while we
Shoot.
were setting up for this, Ricky and I were listening. I was watching, he was listening through the computer, a different news story I was watching. I don't even know where that was, but um, the news anchors, they weren't making
Yeah,
fun of these people, and the guy on the phone sounded
right.
totally legit and didn't sound like somebody, um,
Was
pulling a
acting
prank or
or
anything.
yeah,
Not at
nothing
all. He
like
was
that.
like, so they're like this, and I swear to you, I'm not making this up, and I'm
Yeah.
I'm not playing with you. That for real, there's this creature in my backyard. I don't. It's like 8, 9, 10 feet tall, big black eyes, great big huge mouth. I can see its belly moving as it breathes. It is not human, and he's just like
He's
sounds like
freaked out.
super legit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but at the same time, I was telling Rick a few days ago, um, and it's not the first time we've had this conversation. When I was a kid, I remember thinking the Antichrist is going to derive his power from aliens.
Mm,
Not really derive, but that's going to be the story that everybody's going to believe. Because it's always
right.
been weird for me to think um, people are going to bow down to the image of the beast? What the crap,
Yeah.
man?
Yeah,
Americans
it's weird.
don't bow down. What have you bowed down to? I mean, people will kneel in opposition to, the flag and justice, whatever,
Mhm.
but they're
Mhm.
not bowing down.
Right.
Americans don't bow down,
Yeah.
and most Westerners don't. But we're going to. And I mean, I was a kid. I was not a teenager. And I don't know why I thought that. Maybe I think the alien show V may have been out then. I don't even know if I was allowed to watch it. My parents were very strict on what I was allowed to watch. But uh, I don't know why. I just have always believed that since I was little. I don't think my parents believed think about this. This is just something that in me, I have always
Mm.
believed that the coming great deception was going to have to do with alien beings. Let me qualify. I don't think alien beings are Martians or Zebatunari or whatever. I don't think they're extraterrestrials,
What about
not
Nairobians? I'm totally kidding. Just keep going.
Nairobians. Jeez Louise.
That's a whole different subject.
I think they're from a different dimension, not from a different planet. That's, I guess, the way I can succinctly say this. A long time I did think they were demons, but that's because I didn't understand the difference, and that's why
The conjecture.
we're so big on giving definitions.
Yeah,
of
that's exactly right.
of the fallen angels, the Nephilim, which are their offspring with humans. A dead Nephilim's spirit is a demon. Angels don't die, they are eternal, and there are a bunch of them that are bound right now in Tartarus, the Abyss,
which is something very interesting coming up here, actually.
Right. Yeah. Just not
Do
today's episode. Did you
you
want
mind
to
if I
step
step in on
in?
that one? I
No, not
do.
at all. Although I think
Um,
maybe finish the definitions.
oh, sure. So just to be clear, make sure I got it all right. So essentially, watchers, or also known as angelic beings, the ones that fell, are the ones we
And
call
ones
them
that didn't
fallen
fall.
because
Right.
and there's also the ones that didn't fall. Correct. We refer to the ones that did fall, that procreated with women, but there's other ones too that also have chosen to rebel against God. I'm not going to get into the thick of it. Essentially, anybody that defies God, obviously in the angelic, or I would say Elohimic realm, right? The divine realm. Anyone that chooses to defy God kind of fits into that category. But certainly there are those particular angels that chose to come down and mate with human females and create the Nephilimic race, also known as the giants or the Titans. By some translations and some other cultures use kind of different words for them. Largely
Demigods.
that's demigods. Yeah, literally. That's where you get your Hercules and all that good jazz. And essentially, when they were destroyed, like Shelley said, they are eternal beings, right? At least half of them was. So their bodies were erased, but their spirits lived on, and their spirits were angelic in nature, but obviously highly corrupted, completely corrupted. And so there was no way for them to, there's nowhere for them to go, right? They're
Right.
not part of God's kingdom. He didn't make them. He allowed them to be created, right? But he didn't make them. So they wander. They are
They don't have a
disembodied
place in the
spirits.
order. Right.
Correct, exactly right. And that's why they seek out flesh. They seek out bodies, which is why demonization, all that kind of stuff can happen. Hybrids, I guess, is another term that we're going to get into shortly. Hybrids, I would just say, is any kind of mixing of genetic material. We'll just call it that. That's probably the easiest way to go with it. And I'm going to get
I
to that in
think
a second. Did I
most of
miss
it's
anything?
probably no, that most of it's probably tainted
Yes, correct.
with some sort of divine. I have no idea what the
Ness.
percentages are, but yeah,
Sure.
I think the aliens
Um,
have mixed, or the aliens, gosh darn it, the angels have mixed some of their DNA,
seed.
and I do want to
Mm-hmm.
say this too. There are lots of angels who have not fallen.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The word's really clear about it, and it's a large number.
The majority, I would highly beg
Right.
to say. So that being said, because I don't want to get too much into what we think aliens are quite yet, because we're going to get there. But obviously, you probably have guessed that the fact that we don't necessarily agree with the typical narrative that these are little green men, so on and so forth, creates a big conundrum for a lot of people. In my small mind, I actually don't see any difficulty equating aliens into the equation.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to bring up why that's the case, but also what is the importance of this statement? Why did here? Let me pull this up real quick. Why did Tim bring this up in the first place? Well, because there was a discovery of information that finally was able to get out by this individual that Shelley was talking about, which is the whistleblower. And he is coming forward saying that, if you notice here, that it's not going to let me do it, but the intelligence officials say the U.S. has retrieved craft of non-human origin. So what does that mean? That has huge implications for the world, especially that, at least for the moment, the most powerful, largest militarily oriented nation on the earth just announced that we are housing non-human origin craft, or at least technology, right? Both actually is what's being created now, or what's being claimed. Excuse me. Now that has huge implications because you are now forced to make a decision about what you believe. This is not a topic that you can avoid. And you mentioned something really interesting, Shell, that you said that humans are not Americans, right? Westerners are not accustomed to bowing down. If
Not
I'm
at all.
being honest, I think that Shelley and I both agree that the coming of aliens, which we'll get into more about what they are, but the coming of them has to do with the Great Deception, right? Um,
Absolutely.
and because of that,
1000%.
I think that these kind of happenings are an intentional chipping away at the Western ideal of individual liberty, of individual sovereignty over all things, and the nation state, right? And this is a further move towards globalism, and globalism allows for a more malleable perception of what it means to be human, of what it means to be um, sentient, which we've gotten into in other episodes. Um, and quite frankly, that we're not alone, and that it means for most people that they are realizing that they're not on the top of the food chain anymore. I use the word anymore lightly because we never really were, right? But people are not privy to that, and I would say, this is a learning phenomenon. So the wreckage is important because it forces us to make a decision about what we believe and
Right.
what we think aliens are. What's going on here? Do you want to share something about that, show?
Well, I think let's bring it Matthew 24:24,
Do it.
where Jesus tells us that for false Christs and false prophets will appear and they'll provide great signs and wonders so as to deceive, if possible, even the elect, which are God's chosen ones.
Mm-hmm.
This coming great deception uh, will cause a big falling away. People won't know what to believe. Who is it recently who put? Oh, I can't. Oh, it was Mike Heiser. Dr. Mike Heiser had uh, made a statement, and I'm sure it's his foundation that retweeted it or posted it not too terribly long ago, but it came through my feed that if there were aliens, that would not diminish my belief in
Mm,
God. I mean, he's creator; he
right.
can create whoever he wants.
Yep.
Um, but
And allow whatever he wants to be created.
I was when I was saying when I was a kid, I thought the Antichrist is going to get his power from aliens. The scenario that I always saw in my mind is him saying, "Hey, we have this guy, and we genetically modified him, um, and his whatever his predecessors, and he is an advanced human. Really, he is human, Not even 2.0. 2.0 doesn't come close to what this guy is, but you can have these modifications to become more like him, but we created him to be your savior, to put things into place, to help you to quit abusing Mother Earth, and to take better care of your resources and quit being mean to each other and racist and whatever, whatever things. He's going to fix all of humanity's woes, and have the answers. And I think that I've always thought that the aliens are going to have engineered him to do it. And so that's what I think the great coming deception is. It's probably a whole lot more than that too, because my mind,
It has
like
to
I
do
said,
with
is
that,
a
though, for
puny
sure.
mind.
Well,
Absolutely.
and
And I think,
sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Rick. I think
No.
that the tangible proof we have, that like the craft, and the fact that it's not made of elements or materials that have earthly elements, but they have that there's the atomic
structure.
the atomic structure is not
What we know.
from Earth. And so, it's proof that there's something else. I think that just it leads credence and weight to the deception. No, look, dude, you can touch it. Look, let's go. They've got it in. It's on display in our city next week. We can go see it. Let's take off work, and or, well, hey, we could go see it in Cincinnati earlier. It's going to be there in 2 weeks. And people are going to go, this is real. I can touch it. I can touch it. It's real. Look, there's the body. Look, there's the alien. It's speaking. Oh my God, it just said something to me in my head. And are we going to believe these things? Oh, what if it's an angel of the Lord? Galatians 1:8 and 9.
I'm going to pull it up here.
Yes. Like,
I'm glad you walked into it, because I was about to if you didn't.
Paul is pulling no punches here when he says, I don't care who comes to you. I don't care if it's an angel saying that he has a newer, more direct word from God. He says, but even if we or an angel from heaven preach any other gospel unto you than that which we have preached to you, let him be accursed.
I don't know why that went like that. Okay, guess we're going to just kick me off here. Cool story. Sorry, guys.
As we said before, so say I now again, if any man preach any other gospel unto you than that ye have received, let him be accursed. And what is the gospel? For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, his one unique Son.
That's
That
the word.
anybody who believes in him will not perish but have everlasting life. And if this other being or beings and entourage and whatever, they're going to do signs, man.
Of course.
Things that are going to blow us away, this great deception. And my fear with it is that it's going to lead billions astray. Straight into the pits of hell.
Bowels of hell.
Oh man.
Yeah, man. It's good that you're bringing that up. That's exactly the point that I was actually gonna drive to. And there is something in Scripture that is super important. I'm actually gonna excuse me, pull this verse up. I don't know what version it's in. Maybe it is in King James version. Let me see real quick. This is a verse you guys all know. Yeah, this is the version I want. The King James is exactly the version I want, actually. John 3:16. Oh, that common verse that we all know. There is a hidden gem of information that blows me away that I learned recently. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only begotten Son, that whoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. We all love it. We all know it. Thank you, Jesus. We're saved. Glory, hallelujah. We can shut the book and it's all over. But we can't, because this word right here is massive. This word, I learned recently, means to pass down through your specific line. So, if a man begets his child, yes, he has his child. His wife bears him that child, or his woman bears him that child, right? In our more common age where we don't marry anymore. But when that child is begot refers to it. That child takes on the characteristics and all the stuff that you as the parent bestow on them. So any child can be born, but not any child can be begotten. Because, and this is crazy, I didn't realize this, but the woman passes on the physical characteristics, perhaps the attitude and all those things, and she begets those attributes about him. This is something that I read in Peterson's book. What's the name of the book, Shell? The
Judgment of the Nephilim.
Judgment of the Nephilim. But the man, what the man begets to his child is that child's spiritual reality, spiritual aspects. He begets those things. So it was absolutely necessary for Christ to be begotten, for God to be the Father, so that he could beget the proper spiritual state in the child, which is mind-blowingly cool.
Mm-hmm.
So he took on his mother's physical attributes, maybe some of her characteristics and good and or bad attitudes, right? But God himself, our Father, Yahweh, was the one that had to imbue, had to bestow, had to beget Christ with all those things. So when Paul says, if another angel comes and teaches you another gospel, which is part of the great deception that Shell and I are kind of alluding to, what's going to happen there? Well, it's important because nobody else can give that gospel, because no one else can beget the holy, only Son of God, right? So if you're being preached another Savior, that Savior was not properly begotten. I don't know if that makes sense.
Because it's not begotten of God.
Correct.
Only Yeshua
Right.
was begotten of God.
Yep.
His one and only. And people say, well, then what about where the Bible says that we are called the sons of God. We are joint heirs with Jesus. That's right. And we are grafted in. We are adopted in, but he is the begotten. He is the firstborn. The first of the redeemed.
That's exactly right. And that's why we are able to, through Christ, through his sacrifice, that's why when he made his sacrifice, we are able to beget that new spiritual nature, because only the Father is the one that's able to pass that thing on, which is so cool.
That is very cool.
It's very cool. So
that's the gospel. So I guess if you have aliens coming and they say, no, Jesus, he was the it, then I don't know what we're going to do, but I'm hedging my bets that is
largely they're going to say he was one of he was just one of the prototypes. He was one of ours.
Right.
We're the one that sent him, right? He is our, I mean, and technically it's not wrong. I mean, that's what the devil's is masterful at, right? He says,
right.
Oh, Jesus was my brother. Jesus was one of us. Okay, yes and no.
Right.
I
he
mean,
also
yes,
made you, and
correct.
He was not made.
Correct. Hey, we're about to hop into this next one, Shell, which has to do with the changing the name. The government recently changed the name of UFOs to UAPs. Right. But before that, guys, I want you guys to check this out real quick, okay? Hey, what's up, guys? Like what you hear? Want to hear more? Well, then don't waste any more time. Head over to Patreon at patreon.com/thectdw to hear this full episode. It's only $5 a month to become an exclusive member with special access to all our full episodes. Please like, subscribe, and rate us 5 stars wherever you listen to podcasts. See you at the Christian Dark Web. Awesome. So I was just saying that we are going to go ahead and actually get into what UAP versus UFO stands for, which is highly significant, actually. It's interesting that at the moment that we are actually recovering physical wreckage, we're also almost simultaneously changing the name UFO to UAP. Now, I was not the one that made this observation. This was actually Tim Alberino's observation, but I think it's stinking spot on. I think it's brilliant and it's accurate. It's a proper linguistic analysis of what's happening in real time. When you think of UFO, Shell, what comes to mind?
Unidentified flying object. I think of flying saucers. I think of
Correct.
the physical shippy things.
Tangibility,
Shippy
right? That's what
things.
comes to mind. Not to be confused with Amazon's drones, but they, kind of similar. May have the same effect in the near future with abductions and all that. And, don't return packages, they return humans. No. So when we hear UFO, Shell is exactly right. And we were actually kind of chit-chatting about this, that this is a really important point to hit on. Now the terminology has shifted since the government can no longer deny that UFOs and UFO wreckage is a thing and that it exists. Well, now they're shifting it to UAP, which is unidentified aerial phenomenon. I think it is, right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Well, an aerial phenomenon doesn't have to be physical by any means. It can absolutely jump over. I mean, skip right to the next part, which is that could be a bird, but that could just as easily be somebody shining a light in the air. That's an unidentified aerial phenomenon. Light
Just
has
something.
something. Yeah, there's a
Something
thing in the
happened. It's a
sky.
phenomena.
It's a phenomena. It's an aerial phenomenon. What are you worried about? So it's super contrasting, right? Well, at the same time we're watching the government's like, we have wreckage. We've been collecting wreckage, and you should really go read that document, by the way, if you haven't, guys. It's called, let me pull it up real quick. I'll put it on the screen, actually. Why don't I do that? You should really read this document. So at the same time that the government is saying, oh, yeah, don't sweat it. We're not doing anything weird here, nothing out of the ordinary. It's at the same time saying, there's just aerial phenomena, but they're also divulging, we also have physical evidence. So even though we're not calling it a physical thing, there is physicality involved. And that's just ridiculous. Like it's a typical.
Well, right, because he was on like the retrieval where
Here it is right here.
scooch. That part. Up a little bit when they're giving Grusch's there. Okay, hold on.
I think this is it, right? Right here.
Stop. He served as the reconnaissance office's representative to the. Oh, it's up higher, huh?
That's it. That's
to
the beginning.
retrieve.
What are you looking at?
Oh, okay, it's reconnaissance. I was thinking it was retrieval. It's reconnaissance.
Oh yeah. Oh, right here.
So
okay, yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean you're retrieving anything. You're reconnoitering. So.
Yeah. So that is a massive shift in what we're talking about, and clearly, I mean, you can see that just, oh, look, it says it right here at the very bottom of the page. The task force was established to investigate what were once called unidentified flying objects, or UFOs, and now are officially unidentified anomalous phenomena. Excuse me, not aerial, anomalous phenomena. So that's a huge shift, man. And it's trying to be controlled, right? I mean, they're trying to control this narrative because it's slipping out of their hands. And we had talked about this individual being ridiculed, retaliated against, even
right?
just
For the
for
last couple
frankly doing his
years.
job. Yeah, yeah, and so much so that the government actually passed a law, and I didn't
Very
hear a word about
recently.
it. Yeah, I didn't hear a word about it until I read it this morning. I was like, oh, I didn't know that happened. Where people can present things as whistleblowers to Congress that have to do with UAPs, not
Um,
UFOs. UFOs are weird. UAPs are a thing. But they can present those to Congress without any retaliation. So
the government will
that's
protect them. It's a government
correct.
protection act.
Yeah. And and I think it's almost at the point now, and you were actually mentioning, Michelle, that this is not just a North American phenomenon. And actually, I mean, I'm well aware that it's not, but the reason that they were coming out, I think, is fascinating. That you were telling me that the U.S. is coming out and saying this stuff now. Did you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Um, oh gosh, and I don't have names because really, I mean, this is interesting, but it's not like I'm not like a ufologist or anything. But one of the other nation's leaders was just not going to be quiet about it anymore, and he was like, "Yeah, it's real." I mean, uh, the Brits have been way more open about
Hmm.
all of this than we have. They didn't get the ridicule from their media the way Americans have. But I the other day in social media, one of the guys was like, "Ugh, this is only a North America thing. It's only the Americans and the Canadians," and I was like, "That's so not true. Gosh, this stuff. Have you watched Ancient Aliens? I mean,
Yeah, no
they
kidding.
go to Lake Titicaca all the time. I mean, she's Louise. Um,
Hmm.
they're New Zealand had a spate of them.
Hmm.
I remember from
Oh wow.
years back. They're this phenomena is everywhere. It is
It's
it's
anomalous.
right.
So
It's
anomalous.
not as anomalous as, the word anomaly would lead you to think it is.
Yeah.
Um,
Mexico is a huge proponent.
Gigantic.
There is a ton of UFO activity in Mexico. Actually, I
Peru.
was, yeah, yeah. Peru is huge on that. I was telling Shell actually not that long ago that she and I were reading a book, and I looked at the book, and it was in the very first pages. L.A. Marzulli's book. What was the name of that one, Shell? It's not on the Trail of the Nephilim. It's the other one.
Oh, is that
Crap, I can't remember the name.
the one that I was reading, huh? With the
Yeah, and you're like, hey, you should look at this, and I was
nasty,
like, oh, cool.
gross things that
Yeah, creepy creatures that were recovered,
creepy creatures that are recovered. I'll tell
and
you, that's in
and the
my
guy's name that he has his own program in Mexico. His name is Jaime Maussan, and when I read it, it kind of like, because I've never read that name before, and so I kind of, when you're reading in another language, I don't know if anybody else here speaks another language, and you're reading in that language, and then you read a word that's in another language, your brain like goes, what is this word? Oh, and so it took me a second to kind of realize who it was, and I was like, oh yeah, that guy's huge. There's a humongous following in Mexico. I mean, he's massive. He's a massive influential force, and yeah, I mean, he's one of the prime proponents of that stuff, man. He's a huge ufologist.
I can't remember which Marzulli book it was, and it
Nah,
wasn't
don't worry about it. It's
in
it's
the
not super
app that I
important.
thought it was in.
I'll
Although
post it on
those
there later.
pictures, they were yucky.
They're pretty gruesome.
They're
Um,
like these little creatures. Honestly, they're what I have always thought a bad fairy would
yeah,
look
yeah, that's
like.
exactly what they look like. They're gross little things, man. I could probably
The
pull it up here
scary,
while we're
scary,
looking.
bad little fairy.
I mean, they look like flying gremlins, is what they look
Oh,
like.
so yucky.
I was gonna say though, are you good if we move on to that next topic? Because I think that the
Yeah.
North American thing is pretty okay. Um, we want to give a brief overview real quick, and we're gonna actually start
Nephilim
wrapping up some of these
hybrids.
topics a little bit. Nephilim hybrids. There we go. That's the book. Yeah, crazy stuff. Speaking of hybrids, so we want to ask, what are aliens then? I mean, the wreckage is a huge deal, right? Because it shows that there is a
something
physicality to what's going on,
something tangible, right?
Shell and I have actually been having this conversation
for months.
Honestly, yeah, well, for months, true, but also kind of a little bit more recently, and actually we just kind of talked through this a little bit more in depth within the past, like 2 or 3 weeks, kind of discussing this and what we thought about it. And I am not opposed, going back to Tim's tweet, I'm not opposed to the idea that these UAPs, and actually I am going to use that term for what I'm saying here. I would say that UAPs very likely could be demons. UAPs could also very likely be angelic beings, because they are phenomena that happen in the air. Now, this is my personal belief.
Right.
For a long time, I was just like Shelley was. I was like, it's demons.
It's all demonic, right?
But then when you, I mean, even our language, like I've been struggling to kind of reshape a lot of these terms because I don't like the demonic realm. I'm like, well, what does that mean? That's not, unless you're talking about specifically where the spirits of dead giants dwell, then we're not really talking about the same kind of page, because there's all sorts of other creatures
to give a good answer.
Exactly. And I will later on propose a better term for it, but right now I don't have one. The underworld, if you like, I guess we'll call them. The beings from the underworld, I guess we could even say, is important here. And I would say that so coming back to my point, the aerial phenomenon in my mind could be demonic, could be angelic, could be any of those things. However, we do have a big problem when physical things start showing up, actual technology starts showing up that is non-human in origin. And you can you can take the government to as much as you want to believe what they're putting out, right? But these are, in my opinion, it's important to take this stuff into account, because these are average Joe kind of, like, I don't even have any desire to have anything to do with a lot of this stuff. These kind of people are coming out and talking about this, and it's a regular thing. So the fact that we have physical wreckage, that we have technology, is a problem for the paradigm that all things are demonic. Well, no, they can't be. I mean, it's just not even possible, because demons are by nature not physical, right?
Right.
And can't take on, as far as I understand, can't take on any kind of physical body, at least not in any permanent state.
No,
so
that's why they possess bodies.
Exactly. Which is why I guess I'm just kind of throwing that caveat out there because I don't inhabit the spiritual realm, directly. So, but I would say largely we have a lot of reason to believe that they cannot take on physical form. Having said that, because we've recovered bodies and because we've recovered records and technology, I would say that the phenomena that is physical has to be something hybrid in nature.
Right.
Now, if that's Nephilim or not, you call it what you want. But I like to stick to the term hybrid. And the reason I stick to the term hybrid is because Nephilim in my brain refers back to the giants that were a production of the angelic and human mating. That is how that happened. And we don't know how these aliens are being created. Now, there are some theories about how and all that stuff, but we don't know for sure. That's my take. But I'm going to let Shell kind of share how she feels about some of this stuff too, because it's important.
I agree with that. And I don't know if it's like third, fourth, fifth, sixth generation maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So,
The thinning of the gene pool you're talking about.
right, exactly. And,
Correct.
or if these nasty angels are trying from the abyss, fallen angels that would be, are, running things from the inside, as it were, the way
From the bowels.
one assumes Chapo uh, has things get done while he's in our prison here. Um,
Yeah.
like I
Is he
don't
still
know.
in El Paso? Is he in El Paso?
No, I think he's in like New York or something.
Oh, I was
But
like, no,
he's
I
in
don't
the
think he's in El
U.S.
Paso.
He's in a U.S.
Oh, okay.
Oh no, I'm sure he's a super max, whatever the highest
Yeah.
maximum prison is. I don't know. It's
Probably
just
being held
my
by aliens. Just kidding.
Lord. Uh, um, but I don't know if they're the brains of the operation, and there's some Nephilimic hybrid in
Yeah.
whatever degrees of um, humanity and angel they are. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
it could be any um, percentages. Uh, but it sounds like from what people have experienced, and I do believe the experiences are legit. I'm sure that maybe there are some people who are lying to get attention, but I think
Sure.
most people don't want this kind of attention. And
No kidding.
I really have to say that I believe they experience
This stuff.
something horrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and it sounds like they're taking DNA, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
even babies, because women will say I was pregnant and then I was
Yeah.
abducted and I wasn't pregnant anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I wasn't pregnant, I was abducted and then I was pregnant and then I was abducted again and I wasn't pregnant anymore. It seems to be a somewhat common um, scenario that happens. And so I don't know if they're creating things with big black eyes and long
Yeah.
spindly legs and arms, the grays or the insectoids
Mm-hmm.
or what are the others?
The lizard people.
The reptilians, and then there's the beautiful white looking people. I don't know. They're like there are apparently multiples, but I don't believe they're from uh different parts of the galaxy or other galaxies. Um, I think that all of those different things are manipulations that they've done, just like from before with things like
Yeah.
mermaids and all the blurry creatures, as it were. I think that the vast majority, or maybe the vast majority, I'm going to stick with that as my claim,
Yeah.
are uh, fallen creatures, fallen that the fallen have created them. I don't think that they are
Mm.
fallen creatures. I think that the fallen created them. I just
Yeah.
can't seem to
Yeah.
think of a better way to say that. Um, that's where I'll stop with that.
Yeah, that's cool. Hey guys, hope you guys have enjoyed this. If you want to hear more behind the paywall, you know what to do. Follow us on Patreon, patreon.com/thectdw. For $5 a month, you can watch all of our stuff that's behind the paywall. And we're going to continue with this episode. See you over there. Thank you for watching this episode of The Christian Theological Dark Web. For questions or comments, please email us at thechristiantheologicaldarkweb@gmail.com. If you'd like to support us, please look for the Patreon link in the description. This has been another production of CTDW Studios. Thank you, and God bless.